Hey, I'm Greg Gutfeld with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Bob Beckel, Eric Bowling, and she does Pilates on a Post-it. Dana Perino, The Five. The majority of people arrested in last week's immigration raids were criminals. In 6 counties of Southland, California, of 160 arrested, 150 had committed crimes, including violent assault and child sex offenses. Let's now go to our president on his tough immigration stance.
We are a generous and welcoming people here in the United States, but those who enter the country illegally and those who employ them disrespect the rule of law. We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked.
Oops, sorry about that. Let's try this again. Our president on the recent immigration raids.
We will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws.
Dang, my fault. All right, third time's a charm, Mr. President.
On the home front, we have to create borders. We have to let people that can love our country in, and I want to do that. But we cannot let the wrong people in, and I will not allow that to happen during this administration. And people, the citizens of our country, want that, and that's their attitude too.
Wow. Funny how all these chaps sound exactly alike, yet the media pretends otherwise, depicting these recent raids as unique only to President Trump, but they aren't. And they also depict these raids as attacks on all innocent immigrants, which they aren't. 95% were male, mostly criminal, from a dozen countries. These were not 6-year-old girls clutching teddy bears. But it raises this question: what were these people doing before they were arrested? Are these the folks that liberal lawmakers try to protect in sanctuary cities? If not, why get so upset when they're caught? What BS? When Clinton or Obama did it, oh, it's fine, but under Trump, it's evil. But it's not. Security for all is a moral virtue that requires sensible measures. It's no injustice to target fugitive criminals. It's officials simply doing their jobs. If the left doesn't want ICE doing this, then what do they want? Are we allowed to remove anyone? Or should we just invite the world to empty their jails into the U.S.? If the left had their way, the whole country would be a halfway house for the planet's felons. And orange would be the new red, white, and blue. So, Dana, 15 out of 16 captured, had records of some kind. It's not perfect, but you know what you have? You know, when you're making an omelet, what do they say?
You got to break eggs?
Yeah, you got to break some eggs.
Got to break some eggs, okay. I'm not sure. But yes, these raids aren't new, as you pointed out.
They're not new.
But when I remember when President Bush had ICE do operations, the press was tough.
Yeah.
And especially I remember one, it was sort of a meatpacking plant situation in the Midwest, and then you had stories about children who weren't picked up from daycare,
right,
and they were left in there. This actually seemed to be very targeted at the criminals, but the Republicans seem to always get a tougher stance in the press than liberals. So when President Obama did it, it was like, wow, he is the law and order president. Isn't he amazing? And if it's a Republican, then they're evil.
Yeah. Like, Eric, I think the real scam here is portraying it as unique. That's the thing that drives me crazy. We all have selective amnesia. We don't realize it happened before.
You know why? Because we don't see it on the news.
Yeah.
And if you look back, and I think it was a January 2016 Politico article talking about the rounding up of families, not just criminal aliens. Families were being rounded up under President Obama, but you never saw that. You saw it in Politico, but you didn't see it on mainstream media. And of course,
and you didn't see elected officials on the left complaining about it.
Yeah,
like you do now.
There's no outrage. There's no outrage against President Obama's deportation policies. So you certainly don't hear that, and you didn't hear it. That's why you don't hear it. You read it, but you didn't hear it. But now, God forbid, Donald Trump has a family deported. Oh, my. It'll be like wall to wall on every single network across, including the 6 p.m. news on all the broadcast networks.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, Kimberly, they can find that one. I mean, there are people out there that are weeping they go to that, but they don't show the crimes committed or the injustices portrayed or performed by the illegal immigrants.
No, absolutely not. And look, it's just that's not what they want here. They have like these emotional liberal blinders on, and if President Obama says it, it's like raining from heaven, glorious words of wisdom. But if President Trump says it, oh, it must be mean-spirited, it must be highly illegal, it must be something that we protest and put our hats on about. But if you look at this here in particular, it's 75% had prior felony convictions. By who's trying to give a free pass to the criminals? Do you want them to reoffend, God forbid, to someone you know, a family member, or someone you don't even know? No, they need to go. And I dealt with these people over and over again. Instead of having a nice case file like this, it was like this. And it was from people that refused to give you their true name, that were being protected by sanctuary cities, that were criminal recidivists, that couldn't wait to reoffend again. These people are supposed to be deported, permanently stay out. We do not have an obligation to make public safety in this country less safe for them.
I know we want to bring Bob in, but so here it is. I found the article. It's January 4th, 2016. Here's the headline. Obama administration kicks off family deportation raids. Now, did you know about that?
No.
Did we hear about that anywhere? No.
Where was this polling?
Well, if you listen around
Politico.
this table, when I was here before,
Politico's
you
on
used
it.
to hear that there was no deportation under Barack Obama. He was the weakest deport guy. You were one of the leaders of that. Then, in fact, the largest number of criminals arrested in 1 week period, 2,000, were Obama administration. This was an Obama administration initiative. Trump had nothing to do with this. So Obama had gotten rid of more criminals in a shorter period of time than anybody else has. And yet you said, oh, he's going to
Can I just clarify what I did say, and I'll stand by this now. President Obama's deportation numbers were different from every other president's deportation numbers. If someone was caught at the border under President Obama only and told us to go back, don't even, we caught you, you're on American land, go back and go home, that was counted as a deportation only under Obama, under no one else.
Well, that's not right.
Well, it is right, but okay.
But all I'm saying is that you finally own up to the fact this guy was a deportation
No, he
president.
stopped people at
Do you
the
have
border.
a problem with it? I want to know your opinion on it. Were you happy with what President Obama was doing and equally
yeah, sure. And
immeasurably
I think
happy
this is
with
fine.
President
I think
Trump?
it's fine. I think they ought to get everybody who's a criminal, and even if you have to go into sanctuary cities and get them out. The problem is there's so many of them. Obama got 2,000 in 1 week. And these were targeted, by the way, not at sanctuary cities. These were inside the.
But that also shows you the magnitude of the problem.
Correct.
If there's 2,000 in 1 week,
Yeah,
we got more work to do.
I've never argued we don't have a problem with
But
that.
I guess
That's 100,000 a year. That's nothing. That's nothing. Obama deported 400,000 a year. A year. 2,000 is no big deal. I mean, here's the problem. When you come across and you're on U.S. territory, what you're supposed to do is be caught and processed. Obama didn't do that. He just sent them back on the way, and then they would come back again, and he sent them on the way, come back again. And every time he sent them back, you call that as a deportation.
What would you do? You put them through process, and then you convict them in a court of law. Where do you put them then?
Then you send them back, and they can't come back. And
Why can't they come back the other way?
under an immigration reform law bill turned to law, what you could do is say you come back again a certain amount of times, you go to jail.
Well, they're going to come back. If they get back after they're thrown out and they come back,
they
they're
were
going to come
allowed back in. That was the difference.
There's no reason for them not to.
That was the
But
difference
this is
under
my point. Is
President
that
Obama.
everybody's agreeing that Obama did this, yet the media is acting like it's never happened before. To me, that's the crime, is that the media is acting the previous week that somehow President Trump just came in and just rounded up people. Never been done before. It's never been done. But you even agree. Obama did this all the time.
Except they
when
were
he wasn't
allowed.
golfing.
Except they were allowed back in. So it was
they
sort
weren't
of like.
allowed back in. They snuck back in.
All right.
But hey, remember who was president when that terrible picture of that poor kid in the closet?
Bill Clinton.
Was it Bill
Elian
Clinton?
Gonzalez?
Elian Gonzalez.
Yeah, Elian Gonzalez. That's that got a lot of coverage.
Where are you going with
Wait,
that?
Bob.
No, I was just
Are you saying we should chase children with guns, Bob?
Yes.
Boy, you're getting really hardcore immigration. Speaking of which, Steve, we have a sound on tape of Stephen Miller. Miller, is that his name? Stephen Miller, that's correct. I love Jet Airliner, one of my favorite songs. Here he is.
That's Joe Miller.
That's Steve Miller.
Oh, it's Steve Miller, man.
Yeah, Fly Like an Eagle.
Yeah.
All right, great.
I'm a joker, smoker, big time.
Because of President Trump's actions, innocent people are now being kept out of harm's way. And we as a country spend too little time thinking about the effects of open borders on vulnerable communities, including our migrant communities, lawful migrants, trying to get their start in this country, who have to deal with the scourge of cartel violence, the scourge of gangs, the scourge of violent criminals that we're now removing from this country.
All right.
Bob, the smartest man in D.C. right there. Sorry, not Chris Wallace. He's second smartest.
Yeah. That guy made more mistakes yesterday on Morning News. If they ever put him back on the Sunday shows again, they're crazy. First of all,
the president tweeted, "Congratulations, Stephen Miller. You did a fantastic job representing me on all the Sunday shows."
If you were screwing up so bad, they ought to have a mimeograph copy of it. But
how high tech?
Not the least of which is his national security badge. Although I know we're going to get to that rather line. Anyway. Where were we with that thing?
Stephen Miller.
Miller said under President Trump's initiative, look at all these people who are safe. Trump had nothing to do with it.
All right.
And he refused to answer questions about Flynn. He refused to do anything that was accurate.
He said actually
these
that he
guys
thought
have
Flynn
made
was
an
doing
art
a good
form
job.
and lying. They're liars.
Oh my God!
Are they
Bob,
liars, Dana?
Did you see all the shows that he was on? Because he actually said that he thought that Flynn was doing a very good job, but it wasn't his place to give the opinion of either the President of the United States or the Chief of Staff. I have all the transcripts, and so do you somewhere in your email.
Which is why you could tell when somebody says that. I can't get in the mind of the president. That's the beginning of the end. This guy's gone.
What do you mean? He just
Wait,
he just
are we
did
doing
the
this in
shows
the
this
E-block?
weekend.
No, he means Flynn.
Oh, yeah.
This is a very deep tease.
Well, okay.
Oh, that sounds good for Valentine's Day. All right.
Today, President Trump met face-to-face for the first time with the leader of our neighbor to the north, Canada. He and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spent the day talking about trade, job growth, border security, and more. And then they held a news conference together at the White House. Here was the president earlier addressing the greatest threats to our national security.
Many, many problems. A lot of people have no idea how bad they are, how serious they are. Not only internationally, but when you come right here. I mean, obviously, North Korea is a big problem, and we will deal with that very strongly. We have problems all over the Middle East. We have problems just about every corner of the globe, no matter where you look.
Mr. Trump also defended his travel ban once again.
We want to have a big, beautiful, open door, and we want people to come in our country, but we cannot let the wrong people in, and I will not allow that to happen during this administration. We are getting such praise for our stance, and it's a stance of common sense. We are going to pursue it vigorously, and we don't want to have our country have the kinds of problems that you're witnessing taking place, not only here, but all over the world. We won't stand for it.
Trudeau made it clear that he holds a different position on the issue, but said it wasn't his place to come to the U.S. and, quote, lecture our country on how we choose to govern. It's nice when your friends get along, right?
Well, let's state the obvious here. He's very polite, very nice guy. Trudeau is also
Canadians are polite.
Yeah, but he's also, let's face it, he's very good looking. And his policies.
Glad you called that.
No, his policies require it. You need a pretty face to sell progressivism. No ugly guy could pull off that crap. And also, it feels good to him to talk about the Syria refugee program. It feels good to say you're going to let in 50,000 people. But don't blame us when we start talking about strengthening the border between Canada and the United States because we feel it might be unprotected to our standards. We don't want to have another Germany on our hands because you're right there. So I think it's noble when he talked about the 50,000, but you have to understand that we're going to have different standards than you are, and we have to make sure that the tiniest percentage from the 50,000, the tiniest percentage, 5 people could pull off 5 attacks.
You know what surprised me is that, well, and this might have happened in the private meeting, but in their public comments, they didn't really talk about climate change. And that's one of Trudeau's big things, Eric, is the
listen,
global warming.
There were a couple of noteworthy things for me during that press conference. I was proud. I think there was a moment where I think it was a Canadian reporter asked a question about the northern border. And I was waiting to see what his response was going to be, President Trump, and he stood firm. He said, "No border is truly secure. Everything is on the table," and that was important because, as you know, as Greg points out, that Canada has a far more lenient immigration policy with refugees and with immigration. It is a concern that may end up being a concern down the road. On foreign policy, you also set up a little bit of that with the sound from Saturday night when North Korea tested that ballistic missile. I think the Trump administration needs to get their Asian policy down pat right now, because remember the phone call he had with the Taiwanese president, which in turn conflicted with his one China policy. And then you have Japan, who's concerned about North Korea, whereas China may be like the fact that North Korea's saber rattling a little bit. They really, really need to focus in on that. I would hope that would be their next, not just meeting with the world leaders, but actually come up with this is where we are in our Asian policies.
But you know, that I thought that was very interesting too, because but he also said we're going to do this very, very soon. 3 administrations have tried to figure out how to deal with North Korea very, very soon. Now, our Supreme Leader, Trump, thinks he can do it. I think the answer is the only way you can stop this, unless you get China to stop supporting them, which they will not do, is you're going to have to take military action against them. Does anybody want that to happen? I mean, if they just let loose their artillery they've got pointed at South Korea, you're going to wipe out hundreds of thousands.
Okay, they have 20 warheads. They have 20.
No, I'm not talking about nuclear. I'm talking about artillery that they've got 50,000.
If I could pull back up to the bigger picture, I think that one of the things that people could take comfort in the last 3 weeks is that President Trump now, after several meetings, is able to pick up the phone. He could call Theresa May, the Prime Minister of the UK, Shinzo Abe. They had a great meeting, the Prime Minister of Japan, and now Justin Trudeau. I think that they all recognize they're not always going to agree on policy, but at least now they're on a face-to-face basis. They can call each other up and have some sort of relationship.
Makes a big difference, and that's important to really develop those relationships one-on-one, interpersonal level. Makes it very difficult to then have a conversation where you're not listening or paying attention or making prejudgments about somebody. Dana, do you have the piece of sound on the travel ban? Because I would like to comment.
I do not believe I do.
All right, well then.
But what did it say?
Yeah, so here's the
Let us act it out. Yes.
Yeah, okay, so they don't have an additional piece. Yeah, we'll act it out. Greg, are you willing?
Yes, what should I play?
Read your lines.
Exactly. You're gonna be the Syrian refugee that's got to be. So here's what happened. On Saturday, a 39-year-old Syrian refugee was arrested in Canada on 6 counts of sexual assault, molesting young girls under the age of 16 at a water park. So he's getting a lot of pushback on that because of the open borders kind of policy. I know Canada will step in and take more. And when you look at this in the juxtaposition to President Trump's travel ban right now, where he's catching a lot of grief about it, it's for these exact situations and circumstances where we have a high influx of people that we are improperly able to vet. So you have to make certain who you're coming in. And you want to be compassionate, but balance it with the interests of public safety and national security. And I think it's kind of a perfect positioning right now with the two leaders meeting.
That was well said. And if we hadn't run about all of Supreme Leader Trump's press conference, we could have talked more about this in the segment. But
well, you know what? This is why we have a daily show. We always have, and we have more ahead.
Well, the left is fired up and mobilizing in an effort to put pressure on Republicans who want to replace Obamacare.
This is what democracy looks like. Democracy looks like.
Angry liberal constituents in Georgia and elsewhere across the country lashed out against the Obamacare overhaul effort, dressing down lawmakers at town halls and also attacking President Trump's agenda. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer applauds the nationwide show of outrage by Democrat voters. All right, so Dana, what do you make of his messaging here?
Well, of Schumer's, I think that he's hoping that this is true because, as we were saying, have been saying, the Democrats are really in the wilderness. Like, which direction do they go? They had decided. Whereas they could have triangulated and picked off a couple of Republicans to help support some of the things they want to do, or gone around the Republicans and went straight to the president and said, hey, we've got a deal for you and we'll make the Republicans look bad. Instead of doing that, both the White House and the Democrats on Capitol Hill have decided there's not going to be a lot of conversation, at least at the moment. And so Chuck Schumer, I think, is buoyed by the idea that the left could actually do what the right tried to do, or the Tea Party movement did on Obamacare. However, Obamacare still passed. And they're all the results that people are dealing with in terms of Obamacare. And I don't think that the Democrats should be blind to that. I mean, they've lost 6 elections, or 3 elections in a row, the 2 midterms and the main one in 2016, basically because of Obamacare. So there are changes that need to be made. It doesn't seem to me like Chuck Schumer is willing to come to the table at all.
Doesn't seem like it. And what I'm hearing from you is that they're lacking like a comprehensive core strategy to be able to advance the ball in this.
But you know what? They've got the chants and the signs, and they're the chants and the signs that you've seen before, revealing organization contrived and sponsored by the same people from the same places. I'm not going to say who it is, but it's a Potemkin village of the Walking Dead. Look, CNN. today harkens back to the Tea Party. Oh, this could be like the Tea Party. But I remember them marginalizing and mocking the Tea Party. They hated it. So now the Tea Party is this awesome, inspirational movement because they're finding the left-wing equivalent. Yep. But the only way this is going to work is if the party gets away from the grievance, identity activism, and hate, and start moving more towards, like a Jim Webb, not a Jim Jones.
Ew, but that's coming up on the show.
Well, he's a socialist, remember?
As well. Yeah, no, I got that. All right, so Eric, the Democrats lost in the wilderness, no compass, and basically are not even effectively putting across their messaging to make it sound or appear like they even have a plan. They think like losing is the new winning.
And Schumer was out in front, as was Pelosi and Harry Reid, on trashing the Tea Party demonstrations. Those are organic grassroots town hall demonstrations. These seem to be, and Fox and Friends had a couple of examples of newspaper ads that they clipped showing, here, we'll teach you how to protest, we'll show you where to go, and we'll teach you where you can get paid to do it. But remember, the Tea Party was in response. In 2010, they flipped the House in response to Obamacare passing with 0 Republican votes and passing something that no one on the right liked. So it was a natural response to a overbearing government program that no one liked. We'll see. If this is legit, if they don't like what Donald Trump brings or the Republican brings as a replacement to Obamacare, then they may be right and they may have something. And there may be some risk to some House seats. But as of right now, to take something to change something isn't really as outrageous as passing something that no one on your side likes at all.
Well, I don't know how they got that line in there about they were opposed to Trump's agenda since he doesn't have one. Yet, I think he's a long way away from it. Also, the idea that this election was on Obamacare, there's no evidence at all that Trump won because of Obamacare. He won because of a good message that appealed to people who have been left out of the mainstream.
Bob, Obamacare premiums skyrocketed the very week before the election. Skyrocketed.
You look at every exit poll, every exit poll, and the latest Pew Research poll, and nobody listed it very high.
I think we're getting Beckled right now. I think we're getting the Beckel Almanac.
No, you're not.
No one is ascribing
the abridged version,
the gross increase in Obamacare premiums the week of the election as at least one of the contributing factors to President Trump.
What do you think?
Of course it is.
That's the biggest part of President Obama's legacy.
About how you're going to change it? Just one.
Yeah, repeal the mandate.
Okay, and that means it falls apart without the mandate.
Correct.
Yeah, I do think that for Republicans who are going back to their districts to hold these type of town halls, and they're not the kind of people like us, and we don't have to go and face our constituents. I mean, it is jarring to go to an event where you think you're going to see your constituents. You have people who have bussed in. Maybe they're not even from your district.
Oh, that's just ridiculous.
Come on, Bob.
That's a great.
You can tell.
I don't think it's all paid protesters. But I do think that they are super organized. They're figuring out, okay, if you're in this part of the state, travel 3 hours to get to Utah, to Salt Lake City, in order to go to Jason Chaffetz's town hall. That's happening.
Did that?
Well, that just happened.
Not as much. No, I don't think
they had jobs.
So.
All right.
Did Mike Flynn ever discuss lifting sanctions in any of those conversations? Do you know?
I talked to General Flynn yesterday, and the conversations that took place at that time were not in any way related to new U.S. sanctions against Russia or the expulsion of diplomats.
That was Vice President Pence saying definitively that National Security Advisor Mike Flynn hadn't improperly discussed sanctions with Russia's ambassador before the Trump administration was in power. Flynn now says sanctions may have come up in talks. It doesn't appear that the general's job is in jeopardy. The White House says he has apologized to the vice president for telling him sanctions weren't discussed, and Mr. Pence has accepted his apology. Later this afternoon, the press secretary of the White House said that the president was now, the supreme leader was now...
President.
Is what, interrogating? Evaluating Flynn's future, which is a good sign that Flynn's future's been decided.
Not according to Charles Krauthammer.
Well...
Just if that has any bearing.
Well, what did he say?
Well, he said that he committed no crime, that the problem is that he should not have lied or been untruthful about it, if in fact he did, but that he was about to become an NSA, the head of NSA advisor, and so therefore he should be talking to the Russians about, is what he had said before on Special Report.
Yeah, but see, well, Eric, shouldn't you, I mean, it's talking about sanctions, saying you can't remember if you did. That's one of the biggest issues between the United States and Russia.
I honestly don't think,
listen, crime.
General Flynn, hero, 3-star general, hero, love him, but here's what happens. If you've put Mike Pence, Vice President Pence, in a bad situation by going out on the shows saying that I've spoken to General Flynn and he never had those conversations, you've kind of cornered Pence in a way you don't need to. He's the vice president. That needs to stay intact. I don't know how this plays out. I do know you have to protect Mike Pence's reputation. The man clearly asked him, was told something, and now it seems like things are changing. So got to clear it up.
Well, Dana, you and I both worked in White Houses and seen the beginning and the end of people, how the slight nicks start to get bigger and bigger. What do you think about Flynn's future?
Well, I think that we have to wait and see what the president decides. So there is frustration from the White House from a communication standpoint that a lot of the good stuff that they're doing, the meetings that they've had, the policies that they're putting forward, are not getting the coverage and the attention that they think they should. But one of the problems is that even this afternoon, within the last 2 hours, you've had two different answers about the president's confidence in Mike Flynn. 2 hours ago, he had the full confidence, and then like 45 minutes after that, the press secretary said that the president's going to continue to evaluate. I don't know what is accurate. I can imagine that the vice president is frustrated, but I also know that Mike Pence is the kind of guy who would forgive and try to move on from that. But it's not an easy thing at a White House when you have that situation because it bogs everything down.
Craig, does Flynn make it or not?
I don't know, but I got to say, everybody wants transparency, and that's the amazing truth about this White House. They are really bad at hiding their mistakes because they aren't politicians. This wouldn't have happened to Valerie Jarrett. She would have hid all of her discussions with Iran. No one would have ever known anything because she's sneakier.
Well,
these are not insiders.
This likely could have gone away if Flynn said, yeah, I had the conversation. I didn't realize, and maybe I didn't go to the extent that people are saying, and then he didn't put Pence in the position.
Yeah, the allegation is that he violated the Logan Act.
All I can say is, one more thing is up next.
One more thing, Kimberly Guilfoyle.
Wow, that was strange and exhilarating at the same time. It's Fashion Week right here in New York City, and one of my favorite times of the year indeed. And after the show tonight, I'll be headed to one of the hottest runway shows in town, and guess what? You can join me. I'll be going backstage at the Zhang Toy Fall 2017 Brilliant Royal Blue Fashion Show right before the models hit the catwalk. It's very cool. You can watch the behind-the-scenes action live on the Five's Facebook page. I'll also be streaming it on my page. Go to facebook.com/the5FNC in about an hour or so, around 7 p.m. Eastern, and we shall see you there.
Wow.
Is that guy Chinese?
Oh, my God, Bob.
I was just curious. I don't know.
I
never heard
American.
So, I'm writing this book, The Swamp. I talked about it last week. I absolutely adore this project. It's about scandals, cronyism, corruption in D.C., and there are so many stories. They keep coming. I'm trying to cull the list. Dana sent me an amazing story this morning on a lobbyist. Fantastic. But if you have one, go ahead and tweet me to Eric Bolling at Twitter or Facebook, either one. Tell me your favorite scandal. And I'll see if it makes the list. This is amazing. I'm having so much fun.
You should do a chapter on actual swamps, like real
swamps. Do you
swamps.
know
At the
that
Corps of
DC
Engineers
was built on a swamp?
There you go.
This is a
that's
true
why
story.
it's so hot there.
Yeah.
This is why you adore this.
I love this project.
That's why they call it this one.
There's another way to promote your book. I
Drain
should
the
learn
swamp.
from you guys how you do this. Mine is I Should Be Dead. Now, listen, here's an interesting story. It's a headline. They tell me it's a little old, like 3 weeks, but it's the Dominican Republic, so it's okay. This is a headline in the Dominican newspaper, El Nacional. And it has Bibi and next to him is the President, Supreme Leader of the United States of America. But that is not Donald Trump. It's Mr. Baldwin. The newspaper later apologized to the Supreme Leader.
Interesting. Honest mistake. What are you going to do? Set your DVRs. You never miss an episode of The Five. That's it for us. Special Report is up next.